I wanted to introduce our reading group on Aristotle's politics. Say a little bit about why, what, and who are doing what we are doing. So the what is this recorded reading group on Aristotle's politics. This introduction is somewhat retroactive. We are already a few sessions in. It's the recorded and posted on the Holy Cow YouTube channel. Together, we are slowly and methodically reading Aristotle's politics and discussing what comes up as we read through it. Those sessions are then recorded and posted. So this is to introduce that endeavor, is to speak a little bit as to why we might be doing that, and who we are that are doing it. Morning. So I'm Daniel. I shepherd this holy cow nonsense. I'm joined by Sipo, Hadley, Thomas. Avuyile hasn't been on the channel for a while, but I'm sure she'll be back relatively soon. Hadley isn't joining us for this Aristotle reading group, but he's currently leading us through the critique of pure reason in the series Can't Make Time. And then this series in particular is special to me, at least, and I think to each of us, in that we are joined by Lawrence Bloom, by Larry. Larry is a professor that each of us have in common. A number of us studied under him, did research under him, produced theses under him. He introduced us to Platonic philosophy in a unique way, to a particular way of engaging these ancient texts, a way that is has been deeply rewarding for each of us. And I only need to gesture to the fact that between us, post studying, we are each still engaged with one another in this activity into which we were introduced. We still volunteer our time to be with one another inquiring. And I say it many times on this channel in the notes that what we hope to point to most in these philosophical series is the activity that we are engaged in with each other, pointing to that more than the specific content that we cover. Now, you can take this as a kind of cop-out in terms of not producing the most clear or smooth or efficient output, and there may be an element like that about the clumsiness of trying to become clear and sense make together and poring over a text, but my own sense is that there's a value in recording the entirety of the process, as well as the hiccups, the stammering, the glitches, because something about that is important to the philosophical process itself. Now, if we look at Plato, who has inspired each of us and has definitely grounded our practice together, the form that he chose to write in is dialogues. That is itself a kind of sign or a suggestion or a significant pointing to the activity that the dialogues are an imitation of, which is dialogue, which is philosophy in the context of speech with the other, dialogue. What Socrates was doing on the streets with his fellow citizens. So, we have this technological affordance where we can engage that process with one another, which would otherwise be relatively contained in terms of however many people are engaged in the conversation, and would be private. Larry has shared that he's had a couple or three reading groups that he's been involved in over a series of years, 7+ years. Students from his first year of teaching that he's still in contact with, that they still do reading groups with, that he still does reading groups with. Again, this is a testament to the kind of activity that we are involved in, the kind of text that we return to and pay this manner of respect to. The difference with this situation is that it is recorded and shared. So that is where you might be participating in it. Again, as I say, this is a a special opportunity for me. I'm very glad that this process is being recorded. There's this sense in which the acts of philosophy, there's something about the drama, about the interpersonal dynamic that is important to the philosophical disposition or practice. And again, this is why perhaps Plato wrote dialogues, and it's honoring that sense of the drama in which inquiry happens, the interpersonal dynamics that are a part of the philosophical project, that is itself an important communication in terms of what philosophy is or might be. So, let me add a note on why we might be studying ancient philosophy at all. Why return to the ancients? So, I'll give two general reasons. Both of them are going to place the value of what we're doing outside of what we are doing, and again, we are wanting to point to some kind of self-contained value in the activity of philosophy itself. But contra to that, or maybe subordinate to that, the ancients might be of value to us for two general reasons. The first is that they provide a context that is radically other than our own. They are radically other than us. By engaging them seriously on their own terms, we afford ourselves the possibility of displacing ourselves from where we are. The benefit of that is that we get a place from which we can have a perspective or vantage point on where we are. So philosophy is often concerned with things that otherwise appear common sense or obvious to us. It's concerned with how they came to be obvious, because this is a key insight. They did come to be obvious. They weren't always obvious. The preconceptions, the common sense notions that we have of time, of causation, of beginning and end, of space, are conceptual developments, or at least they are an inheritance. We inherit them from a progression in thought, from a great conversation that civilization has been having. This means that our common sense notions, or the obviousnesses that are downstream from our preconceptions of how time and space and movement and causation relate with one another, are in a sense located in our context. Now, because they are so obvious and so close, we often don't have the space or the opportunity to reflect on them as being inherited, or in some sense contingent, or at least we do not entertain an alternative context. The ancients provide this opportunity. It's an opportunity to be displaced, to take seriously on their terms, so that you can appreciate a new perspective on the context in which you are embedded in. It's a way of disembedding for a view on. It's also a practice of coming to know another on their own terms, the practice of relating to another, reading an ancient text, endeavoring really on the terms of the one in whom you are engaging, this practice of meeting them where they are at, endeavoring to understand them from their position. This displacement is very productive. So, the other, and to contradict what I just said, is that the ancients very much form the foundation to where we are now. So, getting in touch with how they were thinking on their own terms and their own context, to the best of our ability, is touching something that is foundational to where we are at now. In some sense, we are a progression. We are a development from that base, from that origin. Now, if you think about a civilizational long conversation that has been unfolding over 2,000 plus years, and then if you think about what is the speed of thought actually, I think there's a quote from Nietzsche where he says each philosopher is someone who has had probably one original thought. The conversation that I've been speaking about seems to progress in this manner, very slowly. We can divide it up into different times. We have ancient, then the modern, then say the postmodern, and then say whatever space we are in now, transmodern, metamodern, postmodern. Cadell Last from Philosophy Portal has this idea of meta-ontology. It's his advice to your own philosophical development, the encouragement that you develop your own almost narrative of philosophical history, your personal sense of how the conversation has developed and come to be where it is at the moment, because the idea is that a deeper engagement with how it is now or where it is at now involves understanding where it has come from. You can get too fixated on this notion in terms of I can only engage now if I know the history. We're going to reflect on that in a little bit, but the encouragement is this: engage deeply with one thinker from each epoch, time, developmental stage, ancient, modern, postmodern, and whatever we're doing now. Cadell Last's suggestion is Slavoj Zizek for now. What this will do, by risking intimate contact with an other from a different time, is that because that other is embedded themselves in their context, it provides this view through the being of the philosopher into that time or into that stage. It also gives you a clear coordinate of a progression through time. So how the ancient progresses into the modern, or how the modern relates to the ancient. So by this higher definition vision of at least one thinker in each epoch, you develop a more nuanced picture of the progression of thought through time. This is all along this idea with how the ancients are foundational to us, foundational to where we are at now. So coming to study them, getting a sense of where we come from. Now, it's not so simple either way, and both of those external values seem to contradict each other. Let me end it with a kind of a historical analog. I was in Sophiatown, Johannesburg yesterday. I needed to be in the area and I just spent some time. Sophiatown it was a site of significance in the apartheid era. It was originally a farm. The guy named it after his wife, Sophia. It tended to be a kind of multi-racial, multicultural space until they put a sewage station, the sewage works there. Then wealthier people moved out. Then it tended to be more a place of where the inhabitants were black and colored. Still a sense of diversity there. In 1995, the apartheid government initiated forced removals. They evicted people from their homes in that area. When they had completed that process, it again became a white area. It was known as, or it was renamed Triumph or Triumph. Post-apartheid, it has since been renamed back to Sophiatown. The place has been a productive, artistic hub. I'm in Joburg. I was just checking for my pockets. I've got a loose jacket on. It's had a popular jazz scene. So here's like an image of the kind of dilemma that I was pointing at. Engaging a historical thinker, an ancient thinker. If I purely moving from the sense that Sophiatown has some kind of historical significance, it was an important site, something important happened there, important figures like Nelson Mandela spoke about it and referenced it, and we learn about it in school in terms of the apartheid and etc. And I go there and I'm purely infused by the sense of it having had some kind of historical significance. What's probably going to result is my tourism is going to ring a bit empty. I can get off on being in the locality, but there's going to be a way in which that historical engagement prevents a kind of contact or simply being in the place, that I miss something about what's happening there at the moment. you can change that a bit by saying that no, the importance of the historical is in terms of how it informs where the place is and what it is now. So my engagement is to engage with what the place is now, what it's like to be there at current. My historical sense should inform my capacity to be there with how it is. Okay. If, and this is the danger of poor education, if I'm in a place and I have no sense of how it is formed other than what my daily rhythm in that place is, there's a way in which my enactment is disempowered, or my sense of the depth of the place that I am in or at is lacking. This isn't to reify, or it isn't to make too much of the image of history, or say ancient thinkers, but it is at the same time pointing to the need to in some way metabolize this question. And perhaps it's good that I leave it open, and that is perhaps a nice way to conclude. What are we doing? We are reading Aristotle's Politics together. This activity is a living process between ourselves. It's an activity that we are engaging with one another. We are each doing it voluntarily. We think it's a good idea to do. That's exemplified in the fact that we are doing it. That is recorded and it's shared. The benefit of that is that we get to engage Aristotle more on his own terms, but we're also producing this artifact here that is shared online that you might engage as well. That if Aristotle is someone that you're thinking about looking closer at, this is a supplementary resource that can facilitate that process. I'm not sure what it means, but this is the ongoing experimental nature of this channel, that this process can be recorded, that it's shared publicly. I try and integrate this public-private dynamic as much as I can in my own physical life and in terms of being online. As I say, we are each philosophers from South Africa. Larry was born in South Africa as well, but left quite young, went to the States, ended up studying in the States, in Georgia. Hadley, who I mentioned, who is part of this process with us, not in this particular reading group. After his master's, he's pursuing a PhD at the same university that Larry studied at, under the supervisors that were Larry's supervisors. So there's a sense in which he's making contact with and pursuing this lineage, which is special to each of us and something that he can continue to bleed into this space and is willing to bleed into this whatever posture is here. Holy cow. The set of us have aspirations, or it's a continued background inquiry for us of what it means to be educated as philosophers in the context of South Africa. What does that mean? What do we do with that? It's an ongoing and difficult question. The heart of it is something like this willingness to keep inquiring, to keep engaging, to keep returning to the texts, to this activity of philosophy with one another, to inquiring with one another. And this fellowship, the mutuality of being engaged in philosophy together, is some kind of a testament, just the fact of its continuation. I'm being laughed at by good Samaritans who are giving out Easter eggs at the robot. I think it's because I've got my scarecrow hat and I'm on a tractor at an intersection. Alright. think that's good. Let me leave it there. I really appreciate any time and attention that you give this channel. I hope it's in some way beneficial or enriching for you, and this at least is a clear enough introductory sense of what we might be doing when we return to Aristotle's politics together and share that on this little channel. Ciao.